and the way it was lost, the manner in which it was lost.
No.
At her hands, with her depraved heart and mind.
War on your channel, yeah. Yeah, as long as it's
Gary
not
was a brilliant lawyer,
like
a
constant.
forgiving man,
Oh, okay.
and a
Yeah.
beloved father and grandfather.
And I said,
The sentence should reflect
as long as it's
what
not
his family and what the
the
world
main
has
thing,
lost.
they're fine.
And that deserves a sentence of imprisonment of life without the possibility of parole. Thank you, Judge.
All right, Ms. Harris, if you have a statement.
I do. I've written this so that I could get through the words.
Okay.
All right, this is Melody Ferris's
July
statement.
5th, 2018, 6 years, 5 months ago today, began the
on.
worst nightmare I could
No.
ever imagine.
It's all right, I can make that. No, I'll put it on the monitor and we can all hear it.
Not only my world, but my
You hear
family's
that?
world was absolutely destroyed at the hands of one person.
No,
I
it's
have
the
been
best I've got.
6+ years of being told not to talk. Don't say that. Take legal advice.
She's got
I could
no
walk out of this
Look at her,
courtroom
see
today
she's going in. Let's see if I can.
and drop over dead. I want to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, and Gary's family, and to be honest, at this point in time, the entire world who has viewed this. I have waited for years to make this statement to everyone.
Can you hear that?
I want the
That's the
world
best
to
I've
know
got. Sorry.
this. I have always heard that the courtroom is the last place you're going to get the truth.
Do this. You got
And
it.
has that ever been proven
Oh my
to
lord.
be the truth in this case?
It's all right. I'll listen to it later.
Not only
Sorry.
did I not do this,
Hasn't she gotten older?
no, who did? I know Scott killed his father. He took my husband, the father of Chris,
Scott. She
Emily,
blaming
and
Scott.
Amanda. He took Big Daddy from our grandchildren, Ella, Addison, Olivia, Jax, and James. 3 of them who never got to know Gary. Scott, this is unforgivable.
You could see these on? I don't think so, no. They don't have them? No.
Scott has spent an
Is that
entire
Scott
life
or
of
Gary?
loving and protecting you.
No, I
But
think that's
this,
Scott.
I refuse to cover for you.
Craig was
My
the
mother.
taller one.
Your mom
And skinnier.
begged me to take the blame for this. She said after she talked to you, after Gary died, that she knew you had done it. Her exact words were, you are his mother. You have to take blame for this. And I told her no, that I couldn't. I still
Yes.
have 3 other children, grandchildren. And this is not a stolen credit card, a check, or a diamond ring that you've pawned, all of which you have done.
Oh.
I saw you coming from that burn pile the morning of July the 5th. Your
Oh.
truck. You told me that you were checking on the fire to make sure that it wasn't going to get the woods on fire. You told me it was okay. I
You have
asked
to
you a
listen to
few weeks
this.
later.
You have to listen to this. Okay.
Oh, no, is that a headphone?
Speaker, I think. I haven't got 2 audio outputs, so. Oh, shit. Maybe that'll work. It's charged.
Bluetooth mode.
That's the one.
Connecting.
Okay. Now we should be able to hear it. Sorry, guys. I want Tan to hear this. All right. Go.
Was absolutely destroyed at the hands of one person. I have had 6+ years of being told not to talk. Don't say that. Take legal advice. I could walk out of this courtroom today and drop over dead. I want to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, and Gary's family, and to be honest, at this point in time, the entire world who has viewed this. I have waited for years to make this statement to everyone. I want the world to know who did this. I have always heard that the courtroom is the last place you're going to get the truth. And has that ever been proven to be the truth in this case? Not only did I not do this, I know who did. I know Scott killed his father. He took my husband, the father of Chris, Emily, and Amanda. He took Big Daddy from our grandchildren, Ella, Addison, Olivia, Jax, and James. 3 of them who never got to know Gary. Scott, this is unforgivable. Scott has spent an entire life of loving and protecting you, but this I refuse to cover for you.
Oh, he's trying to get it shot.
Your mom
Wow.
begged me to take the blame for this. She said after she talked to you, after Gary died, that she knew you had done it. Her exact words were, "You are his mother. You have to take blame for this." And I told her no, that I couldn't. I still have 3 other children, grandchildren, and this is not a stolen credit card, a check, or a diamond ring that you've pawned, all of which you have done. I saw you coming from that burn pile the morning of July the 5th in your truck. You told me that you were checking on the fire to make sure that it wasn't going to get the woods on fire.
Oh.
You told me it was okay. I asked you a few weeks later why you were at that burn pile in your truck. And you told me that your dad had told you to clean up the extra wood that was by the barn. I told Hayes that I had seen Scott that morning coming from the burn pile. So Hayes, where is that recording? I want to know. You told me there was multiple recorders. You did, but you sat here in this courtroom and you told this court that you didn't tell anybody about recorders, but you did. Where is that recording in the interview? You, Scott, immediately started saying that there was a gun missing, a gun that nobody knew about. You never mentioned before. I asked you more days than not where your dad was, and this was the first time you ever had that response. There's a gun missing. You should have you did start immediately spinning your story when you found out that Addison and Cameron were there the night before. You got so angry. Now I know why. When I went to feed the baby goat the morning,
Your Honor, I'm not objecting at this point. It's all about facts of the case. You, in fact, misstated. Your statement needs to not be about facts.
Right. Well, Ms. Ferris, really not supposed to go into the evidence of this phase of the case.
Let us speak, Judge.
What I typically do is if the defendant wants to go into the facts of the case, I'm going to allow the state to cross-examine or ask questions, which I don't really anticipate you want to do.
I would just ask to
But
close, Judge.
your statements needs to be constrained to the punishment, and if there's things you want to talk about in relation to that and how I should sentence you, I don't have a problem if you want to continue to profess your innocence, but we're not going to go on for a significant period of time when you resuscitate your view of the case and your opinion as to what the evidence is without your prior testimony and without.
Well, she could say regarding the sentence, because he said to her to keep it to the sentence. She said regarding the sentence is Scott should be serving it instead of me.
It's too late now, darling.
Yeah, wow.
But she's putting it on the record for appeal, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so.
The state being able to cross-examine it,
That is right.
it's not proper. So I'm going to ask you to restrain your remarks to comply with those directions.
I always thought Scott did it.
Judge, this needs to
I
be
never
known.
took that barn.
No.
I'll just ask to respond,
It's
Judge.
like in the town road. Why didn't they go inside the house?
Mhm.
All right, go ahead.
I went to feed the baby goat in the morning of July the 5th before I left for the lake. I saw where you had washed out the barn.
Testified.
I later found that several bottles of house wash were missing after this all happened several weeks ago. Now I know why. The photos of your bathroom spotlessly clean. Now I know why. I know why you demanded me to move the tractor that you so were upset about it being in the place. Now I know why. Scott, you called me on July the 4th and asked me what my plans were for the day. And I told you I was going to the lake with Amanda, and you were so glad that I was going. I thought it odd then. Now I know why. I found copies of my birth certificate, your dad's birth certificate, our marriage license in your truck. Now I know why. Scott, I saw Gary going to that barn the night of July the 3rd, right after you got home. And then Scott is going, and I thought then Scott's going to be in trouble for staying at the lake and playing golf all the time. Never in a million years did I ever think that this nightmare was starting then. I told you, Detective Hayes, that I saw Scott going over there to the barn. Where is that in the recording? A bag. I know exactly where and when I was standing. Scott, you put antifreeze under my kitchen sink to set me up for this. That only you would have known where it was because it was for the Mercedes. When Amanda and I were putting that house back together, you sat in there and watched us like a hawk. Now I know why. You became so angry when the fire investigator came in July, weeks after this nightmare started. Now I know why you were so angry. Scott, you failed your polygraph test. You recorded meetings at the attorney's office and turned them over to the DA's office. We hired Manny to help us. Emily is the one who used her daddy's credit card to pay for that attorney. Scott, you got so angry that your sister Amanda was getting my personal clothes and my personal things to the point that Cherokee County had to be called. That is not the actions of the same person. Scott's anger issues have all been a huge issue. When he was in kindergarten and elementary school, Chris
I'm
would,
objecting.
Let's
At
go.
this point, she's dragging Scott through my and his character.
Oh,
This is
shut
not-
up. I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
Ms.
No, I have
Ferris,
to stop.
I'm going to cut you off if you keep just wanting to resuscitate facts that aren't before the court. And Ms. Frankish, I'll give you a chance to respond to the extent that you want to and give you closing statement.
I am the mother that was always there for my children, even though they had done things that were wrong. Chris, who took care of your girls and loved them if they were my own, who came and got them off the street when you were acting an absolute fool because they were scared to death, who drove down to Buckhead and got your children.
Now I'll tell you, okay, so just to kind of give you some direction. Things that are appropriate, you helping take care of your family, raise your family, those kind of things, what you've done throughout your life, and asking the court to exert some sort of mercy on you, things of that nature are appropriate. So you can talk about those kind of things, but let's don't go into the individual facts or things that haven't been previously presented to the court. Okay, all right, go ahead.
I love Ella and Adam Addison more than life itself, and it was their life or mine. It would be mine in a heartbeat. Emily, who helped you move to and from an apartment and a house in 19-degree weather, even though I knew that you were trying to keep it from me. I was always there for you. I came back to you in Thompson Station after your husband was arrested to care for you and Olivia. I am so sorry that your children will never know their big daddy. Amanda and Chad, words cannot express my gratitude for everything that you've done for me. Thank you so very much. And I was fortunate enough to get to care for James every day since he was 3 weeks old. He is my pride and joy. Love for that little boy is unbelievable. I spent 18 plus months in the Cherokee County Jail over something that I did not do. The last thing, I thought that was the last thing I could do to Gary, for him, to get justice for him. I can remember thinking, it's okay that I sit here. I just want answers. That's all I want. And I still haven't gotten them. And I don't think that I ever will. And that scares me to death. Amanda was the only one of my children that got up here and told the truth. And I thank her for that every day. Judge Cannon, I had so many questions, so many whys. Why were so many things not their task? Why was the barn never checked? I think that would have given us so many answers. Why did they run out of Blue Star?
We both
They were
said
on
that.
my property for days. I beg of you to get answers. Judge Cannon, I am begging for justice for Gary, for my children, for my grandchildren, for Gary's family. And I am begging that you throw out this verdict. Be the 13th juror. Help us get justice. I did not do this. I promise you on my life. The 18 months that I did in Cherokee County was nothing compared to the last month that I spent in there. Now I know that Cherokee County did not do the job in the investigation. They took Scott's story and ran with it.
Mhm.
I know that in my heart, body, and soul, who did this. And I'm begging for help. I'm begging you, Judge Gannon. Please do not send me to prison for something I didn't do. I did not do this. If I had done this, I would take this charge gladly. If it would bring Gary back, I would gladly go to prison. I do not want to wait years for an appeal. I've waited 6 years and 5 months for justice already, but here we are. Maybe I should have testified, but I listened to legal counsel. I wanted the truth out there, and this is why I am making the statement. I will talk to any and everyone who can help me and my family. I never wanted my family's life to be played out for the world to see. It is a mother's job to protect her children, and I cannot protect the person who did this. We can't replace Gary. That is unforgivable. I promise you to work hand in hand with the DA's office. But what scares me the most is that because of several individuals, so many others in this county that did not do their job, justice will never be done. For the last 6 years and 5 months, my every thought has been consumed with this. No matter what I do, it never leaves. And until you have lived this, nobody can understand. And I would not wish this on anybody. When I heard of the mother of the boy at the Appalachia school shooting, she called to tell that her own son was going to the school with a gun. My heart broke for her. This is a mother's worst nightmare. Judge Cannon, I beg of you for help. As one parent to another, help me get justice for Gary and my family. A mother, or at least not this mother, does not blame her child unless she knows he did it. Not thinks, knows. And I would never sit here and let the attorneys lay blame to him if I didn't know. You have no idea how heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching this is. John Luke says that I'm the most stoic person that he's ever met. My response was, you never know how strong you are until that's your only choice. So before it said
But his sister, the other
that the
sister.
only reason I'm telling you this is because I got a guilty verdict. It's not, if it had come back as not guilty, I would have still been begging for justice, for help getting the right person convicted. As soon as I walked out of the courtroom, I promise you, I would have done that. Chris, Emily, Amanda, Ella, Allison, Olivia, Jack, and James, I am doing this for you. Gary is gone, and trust me. And I say that he is in a better place because this has been the worst nightmare. It's been hell on earth.
Mhm. Oh, damn.
Knowing that your own son did this. And it's only been by the grace of God that I have survived this last 6 years and 5 months. If I could, I would gladly trade places with Gary. Judge Cannon, I am begging you for help. Please do this for Gary and my family. I have missed years with the people that I love dearly. Help me restore my family. Be the person in Cherokee County that it is their task. I do not want years. I do not want to wait years for justice, years that I may not have. I know this is something that you may never have seen before. And I plead with you to roll this verdict out. Help me get justice for the correct person. As bad as it sounds, I want to be there to watch him chained and shackled and brought to justice. I plead with you. This is something that I will never recover from. I don't know that my family will ever recover from. Please
Yeah.
help me.
He looks
begging
like he's
you
in
to restore
disbelief,
my
but
faith
the
in
other
the
one
judicial
looks
system.
like he's disgusted.
I'm begging you, not for me, but for Gary and my children and my grandchildren.
All right, Ms. Frankish, you want to respond to anything?
Very briefly, Judge. When the attorneys had the opportunity to give theirs, Your Honor was, I believe, present for that.
Mm.
For Scott's sake, they ruled him out in the very beginning of deliberations. Statement, I ask that you take note of his inconsistencies with the evidence, respect the jury's verdict, which I know you will do, that the verdict is spoken. We ask, in addition to what we previously asked, Judge, as a condition that she never profit from this story, from this crime, I just ask that you include that into your sentence.
All right. All right, as we've indicated, jury have returned a verdict of guilty to all counts. Count 1, the malice murder being the primary charge. Count 2 would be vacated as a matter of law based upon the conviction in count 1. Count 3, aggravated assault, would merge into the malice murder. I don't-
It's a one concurrent.
Without going into a lot of detail or my thoughts on it, jury's made a determination that Ms. Ferris was responsible for her husband's death. She was found guilty of all charges.
His hands
I
are
don't have
tied.
much latitude in sentencing. The legislature has spoken, and the penalty for murder is life. The only determination I have is whether I would be with parole or without parole.
Mhm.
I don't believe this is the case that justifies a life without parole sentence, so I'm going to sentence to life with parole, or life with the possibility of parole. I don't have any control over parole. That's up to the parole board. Under the current guidelines and sentencing structure with them, a life sentence is a
Why didn't they ask for downward departure then? Why didn't her legal team ask for downward departure if they knew she was going to make this statement? They could have reduced the sentence.
minimum 30 years before you'd be considered for parole at this point. I recognize that that is likely a life sentence for you, but
Mhm.
you'll have a hope and possibility of parole. As to count 4, which has a maximum of 10 years, I'm not, as I said, I wasn't going to sentence life without parole. However, I do feel like there's some additional consideration that needs to be taken as to count 4, the concealing the death of another. Presumably, the point of that was, so you were found guilty of discarding and burning the body of Gary Wayne Ferris, hindering discovery of whether the person was unlawfully killed. That definitely hindered the investigation and shows additional level of criminal intent. I'm going to sentence to 5 years consecutive on the life sentence as to count 4, concealing the death of another.
Consecutive.
False statements, that being the lying to law enforcement about the relationship with Mr. Barton. I believe if law enforcement didn't know about it at the time, they knew about it shortly thereafter. It was well known. Didn't take a lot of effort to make that determination. I don't really find that that's anything additional that needs additional punishment So I'll run the 5 years concurrent as to count 5. So that will be a life plus 5 with the possibility of parole. And that'll be
Concurrent
since
with count 4.
Hmm?
Count 5 would be concurrent with count 4.
count 5 would be concurrent with count 4 and the other counts. She'd be eligible for the credit for the time that she served in the Cherokee County Jail, subject to the jailer's affidavit from the sheriff's office. To the extent that that gives her credit for her sentence, she would receive that. With it being a life sentence and her being in control of Department of Corrections, are there anything that you want me to put as a condition of her sentence?
No contact with family, Judge.
All right.
And not profiting from her conviction.
I will provision that she may not have direct communication with, well, I mean, she may have some of the family that wants to reach out to her. So what I would say is she's not to have any contact with family members. I don't know who they would even notify other than the prison. So any members of the family that want to have contact with you may contact you. They'll need to reach out to the warden's office first and let them know that they want to allow you to have contact with them, so you can call out to whoever has given approval to the warden. As far as the other provision, I'm not gonna make any condition as to that. That will be something that would be left to a civil court if there is a lawsuit down the road.
I know it's moving.
All right, that means in court. Yes. All right.
Wow.
Execute the non-pros on the other indictment based upon the conviction on this case. Yes.
Well, there's more.
Okay. I got another sentencing, but it's not for another 35 minutes. So if y'all want to break stuff down, you're welcome to.
So they don't have any discretion in the US. Do that with murder. It's what, and that's it.
Oh, I think Steve says something. We'll keep watching. You can break down. Steve, you're muted. Steve, you're muted. Steve, you're muted. You'll figure it out in a second, no doubt. Read your chat.
Yeah, it's easy when I say you do something like that. I just bring it. You know we stream now.
There we go.
All right, I think I'm back now. Sorry, guys. I realized
Yes.
my microphone was unplugged, so I apologize. But let me start over. So, what an incredible sentencing hearing is what I was saying. As everybody probably knows from watching my coverage of this case, I had my doubts about Melody Ferris's guilt. I went back and forth. I had doubts about whether she did this or whether she had help doing this, whether she was involved. I think the account we heard from her on what she just said and how
Yep.
she described it, I think makes more sense than anything we heard in the trial from Scott.
Mhm.
And it makes perfect sense that Gary Ferris was hightailing it down to that barn. She called Gary and said, or she called Scott. They had that conversation, and she told him, "Get your butt home from the lake." And we know there was frictions. We know there were problems. We already know Scott and his dad were not getting along, a few weeks before when the alarm guy was there. And there's a confrontation. And I'm sure some of this was like, Scott, you know what, dude, you gotta go. Like the gravy train is over. It's time. And he lost it. And he had a bad temper and he shot his dad. And that would explain everyone who said, well, where did it happen? Why was there no blood in the house? All of these different factors that everyone has looked at in this case and found it so weird and bizarre with why there wasn't evidence of a crime scene. Where did it all go down at? Why was the shower clean? Why was the hose out in the barn? Well, the reason why is because it happened in the barn. This is what, listen, anyone who wants to say that that this story hadn't been told to her attorneys, there hasn't been a day one story to her attorneys. Go back and listen to the closing arguments and the statements that were made. The attorneys were attempting to tell this story without having her tell the story, because she had a conversation with her mother who told her, you do not, even if your kid did this, you don't go against your child. And that's what Melody Ferris was standing on. And that's why she didn't testify. And what a terrible place to be in. And when you watch Scott, now I want you to understand, Scott was not the one they were showing primarily. Scott was the one in the back, bald spot in the back of the head. And he was holding a blonde lady's hand. They showed him a couple of times. And it was absolutely clear to me that you could tell he looked sick to his stomach. He knows what he did here. And he knows that he did this. And not on top of that, but listen, guys, everyone who wants to say, listen, I think Judge Cannon knows too, because he was privy to the autopsy, to the polygraph test results. Remember, he failed the polygraph. And he failed the polygraph on the question of whether he was involved in his dad's death. He failed that. Okay. And that was when he lawyered up. And that was when he left. And that was when he fully turned on his mom. You've heard about the bizarre behavior of Scott. You've heard the other people around that have been around her who have said that he was
But there's another thing. Remember how
that he was acting bizarrely, that he was following her friends who were at the house. You heard Amanda Ferris's testimony that she said he was staring at her mom, them down at the burn pile. What's he do? He runs into the house. As I said, he was the last one in the house, and there was a bullet found downstairs between the couch and the thing. There's so much stuff that Scott is everywhere on this crime scene. Scott's the one who introduces the gun. Scott says there's a missing gun. It's unbelievable, and a tragic case. So what they do with this here, I don't know. Where she goes from here, I mean, she had the unfortunately the misunderstanding that Judge Cannon could step in and reverse this verdict. He's not going to do that. The jury, they sat through a whole trial. They chose to go with the jury trial. This might have been the one case that you might have said, let Judge Cannon know, because Judge Cannon was already privy to other facts. Now, he wouldn't have necessarily used that, but it certainly could have colored his opinion on it. Although I still believe 12 people viewing a case is best. But I think, listen, I don't think anybody's reversing this verdict. I think unless Scott gets a huge rush of, oh my God, I did wrong here.
No way.
She's going away for the rest of her life. But what a absolutely tragic case, and what a crazy case. And if she is innocent, man, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what the next chapter is. Because, I mean, I don't know how those prosecutors and police, and if there are missing, like she's insinuating that there are missing tapes. If there are missing tapes, this needs to be looked into, and hopefully it will be. Listen, I think this case is going to be looked into. I think this is going to be the subject to documentaries. Rest assured, this is going to be something that's good. That isn't going to end here. And that juror, if you listen to the juror and you listen to the deliberations and you listen to the absolute concerns I have with what they looked at, one of the biggest doubts is getting him to the burn pile. And they basically went back there and said, we don't care. We don't care. The only thing we care about is the crime had to have happened between 9 and 10 because the alarm guy said between 9 and 10, which again was a huge misstep in putting that guy on the stand, because he would have never been put on the stand. He would have never been put on the stand by the prosecution. And had he never gone on the stand, the jury would have never had a 9 to 10 factor of a gunshot being heard. We don't know if that was accurate or not, but that's what he thought. It could have been 10 and 11. It could have been 11 and 12. I felt like it had to have been later in the night because he said he was in bed. And I felt like, who the hell's guy his age? Why is he in bed between 9 and 10? It's possible, but I would figure on it's 4th of July. That this doesn't seem realistic. What would seem realistic is between 11 and 12, he's in bed and he hears the gunshot. But, just unbelievable. And that's exactly right. I see in there, the only thing they cared about, Hannah B, you're right, was her affair. That is what got in the way of the investigators. That's what got in the way of a lot of people. That's what gave tunnel vision to this whole thing. And that's why when they played all those tapes and they had her talking about the affair and they had Rusty on and they had the other guy on, it was like I said, it had what I call the Murdoch effect. What's the Murdoch effect? The Murdoch effect is taking in there and sullying the reputation of the defendant and making the jury hate the defendant. And they did that in the Murdoch case with the financial stuff. And in this case, they did it with the affair stuff. And they had all the affairs come on, and she was just very unlikable. And then the worst part was she didn't testify. And in this case, it's one of those cases where I think she should have testified, told this story, because that's the only way this jury was going to relate to her beyond what they heard on those tapes. Yeah. But you know what? Obviously, there was legal reasons why they probably didn't want her to testify because of the massive amount of things they could bring up. And then secondarily, she clearly didn't want to have to testify against her son. So sad case. But with that said, guys, the Ferris case is now in the bag. So